Good evening, everyone. Third video today, which is a good sign because something in my head's kind of like sparking. But here, once upon a time, far, far away, I had an idea between seriousness and play. And something about this that I want to say to try to find a rhyme and not be led astray. I don't know, I'm trying to be poetic right now, or whatever this might be. There actually is kind of like a flow in my head for you guys to hear and see. It's funny, but like I think the dramatization of language, poetry is literally the bare. It's let's talk about poetry before I jump into the actual thing that I want to talk about. But it's in front of me, so I will not forget it. But there is something about poetry on our feelings. Why not? Let's discuss that. Poetry and feelings. So I did go through a time where I wrote a lot of poetry, and I actually I understand anytime I'm writing poetry is when everything around me kind of is. Sorry, man, that something just popped in my head. Anytime I'm writing poetry over the past 3 years, it's basically a time where everything in my head had to be condensed in order to be expressed. A couple of days ago, I was watching a reel, naturally. It's all about reels. And it's funny because, like, really information is all around us. But, like, the algorithm loves me because of the things I follow. So I follow literary people, poets, artists, painters, writers, just book enthusiasts, computer scientists, engineers. I love this kind of stuff. Why? Because they're kind of like the people that structure how the rest of the world lives in society. So for me, there are three types of people in this world. There are three types of people in society. There are the people that kind of like at the core create the sustained society. Like they are the farmers. Like without them, people would literally die. They are the manufacturers. Like without them, people don't like. I don't mean manufacturers as in like uh, I don't know. They're the people that literally produce for others to consume, right? And they're ranked naturally, but they are like very important. And there's like a hierarchy between the guy planting to the guy actually like processing to the guy actually selling. But then you have actual society where like there are the doctors and there are the engineers, and these are the people that kind of like they're the cogs. They're not the cogs of the machine. They're kind of like the design systems of the machine, like the health sector, the public sector, like the engineering sector, and all these kind of like are coming out. But ultimately, you have the third kind of person, and that third kind of person is that like random that's kind of like living in between on the edge. I don't know if you want to say it in between, but kind of like dove deep enough into society in order to step and like observe it from the far. So like if you're gonna be looking at society as a triangle, there's the outskirts of society, and then there's the inside of society, and then there's that like small on top that looks at both of them and kind of engages with both of them, respects both of them, understands both of them, and has that feel. But so like the algorithm, I feed it what I want to watch and what I want to listen to. And one guy was describing poetry as the language's purest form. What does that mean exactly? I needed some sugar. And when he said that, I understood him completely. But now, as I'm explaining it to you, like it kind of came out in my head differently. So poetry is the language's purest form. Why? It's because we're selectively choosing certain words to express a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And we as human beings, like kind of try to articulate and try to search for more words to explain what's going on with us. Whilst poetry does the opposite, it chooses less words in order to kind of like pop, give a bigger impact. And it's literally the combination of those things. that kind of creates this effect. There's the roads words that you choose that kind of like identify where you're going and what direction you are going with. But then the way you combine them together, the way they rhyme, kind of like create that flow and in between the emotions and the mind, and like harmonize us in a certain way towards certain feelings or towards certain like understandings of our surroundings. So yeah, I tend to kind of like every once in a while start writing more poetry, and I call it like we have an expression in Arabic, ayush, in Lebanese, sorry, Lebanese Arabic, ayush, and ayush means somebody who's like living it but being extra, right? Because like it's a thing in the states in the '90s, like oh my god, you're so extra, and it's a shame because that extra part is basically where we get to elaborate on ourselves differently and we get to kind of like explore the world from a different angle, that extra part. And so over the past 3 years, when I first started writing the book, when I first started writing the book, it wasn't a book. It was just like a bad nightmare that I had to put on paper in order for me to be able to like go through the day. Like it wasn't the best way to wake up, man. I remember it was a whole lot of like I was walking around singing mantras and trying my best to find something like when I first when I first saw the world differently, and that was the like when my empathetic stage kind of like reach its. What more do you want to see before you actually like right? Like there's a lot of times where we look at things and we go, I'm not ready to like let go yet. There's a lot of times where you look at when you're like sitting somewhere and you go like and you're like I want to stay here a bit more, and you kind of stick around until you're either way too bored or you're no longer welcome. And it's I think maturity is being able to realize when you've had enough. It's like even with food, right? Like you eat because you're hungry or because it tastes good, and then at one point you're only eating because there's food in front of you, instead of like taking a step back and going like this is no longer serving me. So you eat until you're kind of like sick, or you keep eating until you can't eat anymore and you can't move and you can't do anything for the next 3 4 hours. And that's basically what happened to me at that point. So when I started writing, like I started writing and I started expressing, and it's beautiful because it starts creating something in my head, and I have to kind of let a lot more out, so it becomes a story. And stories are ways to express certain transitions and thoughts and to be able to relate with the world, because we use points of references and stories and we try to like capture audiences. So I was my own audience trying to be captured and trying to like understand what I was going through. And then when I get blocked writing the story, the first thing that happens is I start becoming more like poetic in how I am actually describing my blockage. So naturally, I started writing that. And then I started realizing my storytelling would literally be like a whole part of writing, and then different parts where I'm explaining the transition between what I was writing before and what I was writing then. And it's funny because every time like the poetic thing happens, it's me diving deeper into whatever it is I'm doing. And it changes my whole world around me because like the first time I was doing poetry, I was like I had been back for like 3 months from West Africa. The second time I was doing it, it was like when I was when I had finished my programming and I started working on my startup. And the last time I was doing it was when I started coding the website for real. The third time I was coding the website. And the reason I mentioned poetry right now, I think it's because like this, I want to express a certain realization that I got to right now, and I figured if I were to kind of like start talking about something like this, it'll be best be told as a tale, as a, like one of those like tall tales that somebody's playing some old ass instrument and then singing it in some pub tavernish thing, very much Game of Thrones style, or maybe what's his name, the Wicker Man, the the Witcher style kind of like theme. Remember, I am actually like building a platform in the hopes of gamifying society. That is definitely my goal. So the approach behind, I don't know, there's a lot of poeticism behind a certain lifestyle, any lifestyle. A lifestyle, the normalized lifestyles were poetic at one point, but when everyone actually achieves them, it's no longer a romanticized one. And Japanese people have a very like deep deep expression towards this. They go like, the modern man has lost the drama of life, because their life and their like whatever they're doing in life and is no longer romanticized, because like remember, like samurai died for honor, the feudal lord governed for their people, and like everyone tries to find that romance in their life. It's fun stuff. It's just right now, like the more I find myself energetic towards rhyming things around me, the more I kind of realize I'm anchoring things down. But the realization I came to just now is a bit too strong. So that's how it started coming out, which is fun because it actually means over the next like 2 months or so, I'm going to be refining myself and how I relate to other people. And I'm lucky to have a few people that are actually consistent in my life. And I'm super grateful for that. And it's super cute. And yay, fuck yay, man. But my next video, I'm going to be telling you what brought this up and what did I learn today. Peace.